Welcome back. This tutorial will demonstrate how to handle collisions in Pygame. Let me just go through the setup I've got here at the moment. This is very much based on the advanced character movement. We've got projectiles in here, and we've added some enemies. Just to quickly go over how this is done, there was an asteroid class that I've created, which is very similar to the player class. It just takes a position when we create it in the constructor. It's using a standard image. Everything else is pretty straightforward, I think there. The speed has been set to 3. The asteroids move down the screen every time the game is updated by 3 pixels. And when they go beyond the screen height, they're randomly put back above the screen again. This here is generating a random number between 100 and 500 and then turning it negative so it goes off the screen. Now, if I look back on this one, so here we've created a sprite group to hold all of the asteroids. I have looped then 10 times. And each time I've looped, I create an asteroid. I randomly generate the X coordinate. And then I randomly generate the Y coordinate as well, so they don't all appear in the same place. And then I add them to the asteroids group. Further down, we update the asteroids. We draw them to the screen, and then we update all the sprites and draw them to the screen. Now, this has become a little bit different because all sprites is really in this game at the moment is just the player. That's the only one that's in there, which is here where we've just added it. So all sprites is actually, in this case, just referring to the player. So if I run this at the moment, this is the situation we have, and you'll see there's 10 asteroids, and then they get kind of recycled back in random positions, so they won't always come down the same place. So what we want to do now, let's have a look at trying to detect a collision between the player and the asteroid. So before we update, or in fact before we draw, let's actually move this here. So we deal with our updates first for the asteroids and the player, then we're going to draw them. So before we draw them, let's check for collisions. Now there's 2 different collision types. There's a sprite collide, where we can check one single sprite against a whole group of sprites. We'll look at this one first, just so I can demonstrate it. So in this case, I would have to give it a single sprite. So I could give it my game character, and then we have to check it against a group of sprites, so I could give it the asteroids. After that, we've got a variable here where we can set to true or false, which determines whether the character or asteroid is destroyed. So you'll see in terms of a sprite collide, the true is actually referring to the asteroid. So it's actually destroying the asteroid, which is not ideal. It would, if we were maybe doing a game where we were collecting coins or something like that, then this would make sense. But in this kind of game, it doesn't. So we're actually going to change the type of collision that's happening here to a group collide. We're going to pass it the all sprites, which, as I remember, just contains just the player. We're going to send it the asteroids. And then we can pass true and false for both of these. So the first one represents, do we want this to be destroyed? And I'm going to say yes. And the second one is for the asteroid. I'm going to say yes to both. So if we run this now, when the player hits the asteroid, the player and the asteroid is destroyed. You could, for example, decide that maybe the asteroid is a bit stronger than the player and shouldn't be destroyed when it's hit. And if that's the case, then just the player would be destroyed in this example. Now, this information it's given you back actually gives you back a collection of all of the sprites that have collided. So if, for example, maybe you didn't want anything to be destroyed, we could set these both to false. And then I can loop through for asteroid and collisions. So what we're just going to do here, we're just going to print out the position of the asteroid that gets hit. So we have to look down in the terminal when this happens now. Okay, so you can see here where the asteroid information is now taking place. So we could actually then do this ourselves. We could then say asteroid.kill, which would then manually handle the collisions that we're dealing with. Okay. So actually what we've seen here then, this has returned this collision rather than this in this case. So it'd be probably better for us to rephrase this. Yeah. Okay, so we can manually do things. Maybe when a collision happens, we want to call a method on the player when this occurs, and this is a way of doing it. So for the time being, all I'm going to do for this one, though, is set these both back to true. But we also, if you remember in our setup, we have these bullets. Now, the problem with the bullets are that we haven't got access to them here. They exist in our player. So if we were going to use those, we would need to do it slightly differently. So we could do Pygame.Sprite. The bullets are kept in a group, so we'd still need a group collide. And this time we would need to go to the character, and then we would get access to the bullets for that character. Once we got access to those, we're going to test against the asteroids. And in this case, again, both are going to be destroyed. Okay. It's quite nice because the bullets act individually as well. So we can actually hit two like that. Now, do remember, if you wish maybe to add a point, okay, every time this occurs, then you would need to store the collisions. So it would give you back all of them. You could then say for item in collisions, and then you would be able to add, if you had like a score variable or something here, you could then add 1 to the score for each time there's a collision that occurs. Okay, I think that probably covers what you need to know at the moment for your different games. I hope that's been of some help.